try to angle it towards myself. Okay. Hello, everyone. It looks like most of us have our food, and I hope you've had a chance to walk around and grab some swag. If not, there will be more opportunities to do that here in a little bit. We are really excited to have you here tonight to talk about this topic with us. If you haven't yet, go ahead and start your pre-survey. You can either scan it on your phone if you want to, or you should have a paper copy that you got at the front. If you don't have your raffle ticket, make sure that you get that before the evening is through, and we'll put your name on it and enter you to win one of these incredible prizes over here. I mean, there are just some really great things that our partners that are here donated for this event tonight. Okay, I'm going to introduce our speaker. The reason we're all here to hear this excellent information, Dr. Kristen Kocey is a graduate student at Utah State University. She's graduating in just a few days on May 2nd. Yay! With her PhD in sociology. The research she will be speaking about today was conducted as part of her doctoral dissertation, which broadly focuses on well-being and mental health in rural and natural resource development communities in Utah. Mental health among coal miners in the area and in the broader Price community was a key part of her exploration. She hopes the insights on mental health and coal mining she shares this evening will be useful for all of us and of interest to each of you. So give us a nice warm round of applause and welcome to Kristen, Dr. Kocey. Thank you. Should have had you go up there before me. There you go.
Hi, everyone. I hope you can hear me without this falling over. As Ashley said, I'm Kristen, and I'm really excited to be with y'all here today to talk about well-being, mental health, and coal mining in Carbon County and Price. So before I jump into some of the things that I found from this research, I thought I'd give a little bit of background on mental health in the U.S., in rural areas, and in Utah, just sort of as a lead into what I'm going to be sharing with you all today. So first, looking at mental health in the U.S., mental illnesses are among the most common health conditions in the U.S., with more than 1 in 5 U.S. adults living with some form of mental illness, and about 1 in 25 living with a serious mental illness such as schizophrenia or bipolar disorder. Additionally, 17.3%, or about 48.7 million of those 12 or older, had a substance use disorder in the past year. So narrowing the scope a little to rural mental health, 1/5 of the U.S. population live in rural areas, and about 1/5 of those who live in rural areas have some form of mental illness. Rural residents also experience some significant mental health disparities, such as a lack of availability and accessibility of mental health services. There are also higher suicide rates in the rural U.S. Additionally, 28.8% of those aged 12 to 20 reported alcohol use in the past year, and 21.9% reported illicit drug use in the past year. So narrowing even a little further to mental health in Utah, by some measures, Utah has the poorest mental health of all states for adults. About 1 in 5 Utah adults experience poor mental health, and about 1 in 20 experience a serious mental illness. And despite these statistics, over half of Utah adults with mental illness did not receive mental health treatment as of 2019. And as of 2020, suicide is the leading cause of death for those ages 10 to 24. Additionally, 33.8% of adults reported alcohol use in the past year. And from 2019 to 2022, 19.9 drug deaths were reported per 100,000 individuals. From 2019 to 2022, in the Carbon, Emory, and Grant County area, 34.2 drug deaths were reported per 100,000. And sort of in the same family as mental health is this concept of well-being, which just generally includes the presence of positive emotions and moods, the absence of negative emotions, satisfaction with life, fulfillment, and positive functioning. So generally, it can be described as judging life positively and feeling good. And there are various domains or categories of well-being that can be looked at or measured. Some of them include, but are not limited to, physical health, safety and security, local environmental quality, and mental health, which is what I'll be talking about today. So I'm just going to give a brief outline of the presentation. So first we'll look at well-being and mental health in Carbon County and Price, looking at findings from the Utah Well-Being Survey. And then we'll jump into some findings from interviews I conducted with folks here in this area. And we'll first look at general mental health in Carbon County and Price, then coal mining and mental health, and then mental health stigma, and then we'll talk about some needed resources and solutions for addressing mental health in the area. So first, looking at well-being and mental health in Carbon County and Price, again, looking at findings from the Utah Well-Being Survey. So the Utah Well-Being Survey tracks local perspectives on well-being around the state. Over 40 Utah cities and towns have participated in the survey since 2019, and over 25,000 responses have been collected to date. The data that I'm going to share with you here today is from the 2022 Utah Well-Being Survey. So in 2022, 33 Utah cities and towns participated. It was administered online, and it was advertised via social media, newsletters, utility bills, and other local mechanisms, and residents aged 18 plus were encouraged to take the survey. So just sort of a breakdown in this area. In Carbon County, there were a total of 438 responses. In East Carbon, there were 131 responses. In Helper, there were 46 responses. And in Price, there were 261 responses. So looking at Carbon County first, just more generally, overall personal well-being was above average in Helper and below average in Price and East Carbon. Mental health was among the top 2 most important well-being categories, second only to safety and security. And substance use disorder was among the top 2 concerns for the future of Carbon County cities, second to opportunities for youth. And looking at Price specifically, overall personal well-being was below average in Price. Mental health was rated the most important well-being category in Price over all others. And substance use disorder was among the top 3 concerns for the future of Price, behind opportunities for youth and water supply. So in the survey, respondents were asked to rate their level of personal well-being in the mental health category on a scale from 1 being very poor to 5 being excellent. And this figure right here just shows all of the participating Utah cities in 2022. And I have put boxes around Price, East Carbon, and Helper so you can sort of see where they fall in this group of the rural communities that participated. So what this figure shows is just that average scores for overall mental health were lower for rural communities, including in Price, East Carbon, and Helper. Respondents were also asked to rate how important mental health is to their overall personal well-being on a scale from 1 being not at all important to 5 being very important. And this figure is similar to the other. I boxed again Helper, Price, and East Carbon, so you can see where they fall within those rural communities. And what this figure shows is that average scores for mental health importance were actually lower for rural communities, but the overall average for mental health importance, there's a line sort of down the middle here. You can see the average. It's 4.72. It tells us that mental health is important to individuals like across the board. Respondents were also asked about their opinions regarding suicide and access to mental health care. So looking at access to mental health care first, we can see that Price, Helper, and East Carbon are all, they're within the top 6, so they rated concern for access to mental health higher than those that you see below it there. And then when you look at suicide, Price is the top community within those rural communities that participated in the survey with the highest concern for suicide, followed closely by East Carbon and Helper down there, sort of at the 5th spot. So now I'm going to move on to findings from interviews that I conducted here in the Carbon County and Price area. And while here, I conducted 27 interviews. I talked to 6 active or retired coal miners, 6 directly related to a coal miner, so in the immediate family, 5 mental health care providers, 4 community leaders, 3 who work in substance use recovery, treatment, and prevention, and then others who just work in different professions throughout the area. So the interviews were about an hour long, and they were conducted in person or over Zoom, just based on the preference of the interviewee. I actually spent about a month here living in Price, doing these interviews, but also like familiarizing myself with the area and getting involved with local organizations and just sort of seeing, how life works here. So first we'll look at general mental health. But I want to actually get some of y'all's feedback on this, and I'm going to try and open this up to where y'all can participate in this poll. Awesome. So if you scan this QR code, or you can text to the number, or you can join by web, the question here is, do you view mental health as a key issue in the community? And this is one of the questions that I asked during my interviews. So if y'all would, I would love to get your input on this particular question. And the results should show up live as y'all are participating. You won't see who is putting their answer in, but you will see the results as they come up. So I see some of y'all are already doing it. That's great. I'll just wait a few minutes. I think this is as big as I can make it. So it says join by text. You can send to 22333. And you'll send Kristen Kosi, that's Kristen Koci 822. And you should be able to participate that way as well. Oh yeah, and if y'all want to come up and take a picture, that's totally fine. Don't be shy, just come on up. Alright, well it looks like most of y'all got a chance to participate. I'll leave it up here for a few more minutes as I'm talking, but it looks like about 84% of y'all said yes, you view mental health as a key issue in the community. And I see here about 19% are saying yes, but they view it as a key issue in every community. So next I'm just going to show what findings from the interviews that I did on this particular question. Okay, for some reason it's not showing in that view, so I'm going to show you all in this view. So when I asked, do you view mental health as a key issue in the community? We can see that about 88.9% or 24 individuals said yes, they view mental health as a key issue in the community. And about 11.1% said they view it as every community, not just in this community. And here I have another one for y'all. It looks like people have already gotten started. That's awesome. I'm going to bring it up again so y'all can see the QR code for it. And the question is, what sort of mental health issues would you say exist in the community? So just in like 1 to 2 words, just sort of type in what mental health issues you would say exist in the community, and it'll just show up. And the most mentioned ones will be the bigger ones. So I'll just wait a few minutes while y'all have some time to get those put in. These are all great. I'm seeing depression is the most mentioned one here so far, and anxiety. I see stigma, substance use disorder. Yeah, trauma, suicide. Yeah, all great. So now I'm going to share with you what findings from the interviews that I did with folks here. So I will go back here. For some reason, it's not wanting to show there. Okay, so when I asked what sort of mental health issues would you say exist in the community to folks that I interviewed, depression was the top mentioned one, followed by anxiety and substance use disorder. And others mentioned bipolar disorder, suicide, and schizophrenia. Now let's see if I can go back into full view here. And then I asked, why do you think mental health issues exist here? And I got a range of answers to this question, but I'm just going to present on the 3 most consistently mentioned ones throughout interviews. So the first was job insecurity, economic uncertainty, and lack of work in relation to coal mining. The second was rurality and lack of recreational opportunities. And the third was the sort of old school way of thinking, as one interviewee put it. So looking first at job insecurity, economic uncertainty, and lack of work in relation to coal mining, I'm just going to provide a few examples of what individuals said during interviews. So in terms of job insecurity, one individual said, a lot of our guys are in the coal mines. So when those coal mines shut down, they get depressed, they get anxious. They have $400,000 houses, $200,000 in cars, so people get depressed, people get anxious, and I think that's a big thing. In terms of economic uncertainty, one individual said, I think that the economic uncertainty probably plays more of a role in mental health here because of the unstable natures of the coal mine. So I talked to some individuals who looked at it sort of as in a personal way, saying, you know, if a coal mine shuts down, what does that mean for the economic future of me and my family? And then I had some individuals talk about it as the community as a whole. So it's, if the coal mines close down, what does that mean for the economic future of this community overall? And then in terms of lack of work, one individual said, you know, people go to the coal mines, you know, as an 18-year-old kid, you've been there for a year, you get married, have kids, and then you get laid off a year later. And you can't get back to work. That's going to depress anybody. I've seen people that just really struggled with that. And then looking at rurality and lack of recreational opportunities, focusing first on rurality, one individual said when you're kind of in smaller towns, like it feels like you get trapped there. And another said because there isn't a lot to do, you're stuck home being bored all the time, and that just makes you have a lot of time to think about things. And in terms of lack of recreational opportunities, one individual said, if you're not really an outside person that wants to go and like mountain bike or whatever, all that kind of stuff, it can be kind of depressing not having anything to do. And another individual said, I think they exist here, mental health issues exist here a lot because there isn't a lot to do. You're stuck home being bored all the time. Then looking at this old school way of thinking, as one interviewee put it, one individual said, when you grow up in a place where you don't talk about your feelings, you don't talk about your struggles, you don't acknowledge if you're having a hard time, you don't cry if you're upset, whatever that looks like, it's really hard to be comfortable acknowledging, this is where I'm at, this is what I'm feeling. And I think that is a big issue in this community, because you have so many old school Carbon County community members that we don't talk about our problems, but that doesn't mean they're not there. Another individual said it goes back to this old school way of thinking. It's how these young men were raised, and that grown men don't cry. Rub some dirt in it. It's still perceived that it's weak to ask for help. Now turning to mining and mental health in the community. First, I asked the individuals that I interviewed just to tell me a little bit about the relationship between the community and mining. And I got several answers, some of which I'm going to share here. One individual said, coal mining is the core of Carbon and Emery counties. That's why we exist. Another said, coal and the railroad is what built this area. Coal is what brought the immigrants here. Coal is what brought the jobs here, the diverse culture. Without coal, we wouldn't have Carbon County. Another said, you're either a miner, somebody that works on the miner stuff, or somebody that feeds or supports the miners. All the way down the line, it's the mining community that is what keeps us going. Another individual said it's part of who we are. It's a wonderful heritage. It takes a special type of individual to be able to go that far underground every day and get dirty and work hard and put your body through that every day. There's a lot of pride in being able to say, hey, we built Utah on our backs. We love it. And another said, I think that the mines have really brought everybody close together. Sometimes I think maybe to an outsider, we can talk a language that maybe they don't even understand. Then I asked, how do you believe that mining impacts mental health? And one of the most mentioned ways that individuals said mining impacts mental health is through physical injury. And I'll provide some examples here. So one individual said, I think mining does wear on people. It's hard work. There's possibility of injuries. I do think that some of the coal miners struggle with depression. Another individual said there are 100 ways to get hurt, from riding in on the little trains to mine collapses. It's hard on you mentally to know that you may not come out of a coal mine that day, or you might be taken out in an ambulance in real possibilities. And another said these young kids, they invest all of their physical health into their jobs. And then they get to be in their 40s and they can no longer perform or do the same work that they used to. And there's only so many higher level positions in coal mining for people. So I think that not being able to perform or have the physical health to do what you used to do, I think that contributes. They go on to say the expectation is completely and totally unrealistic from these coal mining places about what an older person is capable of. And so there's a lot of shame and guilt when these people can't provide for their families like they used to. Another way that individuals said that they believe that mining impacts mental health is through job insecurity. So one individual said, you never know are you going to have a job tomorrow. A lot of these guys have the house payments, the car payments, feeding their families. So being out of work and not being able to do any of that sure puts some extra stress, and I'm sure depression too on those men. When we see a coal mine shut down, we see a huge increase in substance use disorder and mental health because that's how they're coping. They're going to cope. And there's a lot of substance use underground too. Another individual said there's nothing in this area that will support your lifestyle if you're a coal miner and you lose a coal mining job. You can't go from being a coal miner to work anywhere else in town and still have your vehicle and still have your house and still be able to make those payments. Once you get those bills that only coal mining will support, you will have to be a coal miner. So that feeling of being stuck in the coal mines, I'm sure, weighs heavy. Others talked about shift work and job pride. So in terms of shift work, one individual said, it's definitely that shift work thing that's the biggest impact. When you become a coal miner, you don't just get stuck on one schedule for the rest of your life. What they end up doing is they'll work you 3 days on during the day and you get 4 days off. And then you go to 3 or 4 days on at nighttime. So you completely switch your sleeping pattern. And then the next week it's back to days, and then you get a break. over and over again. I get coal miners coming in and they're like, I don't know your age, talking about me, my age. And they're like, I think I have some sort of brain issue. And then you start investigating their sleep patterns, and the answer is you have sleep deprivation. Another individual said, in terms of job pride, my father-in-law's a miner, and he loves it and he hates it. It's just dark and dangerous, and being in a dark and dangerous place is not good for your mental health. But they also love their job, and they're so proud of it, that when they suddenly can't, whether they get laid off or they get injured, I think that's very detrimental, because they put so much value into their craft. I think it's hard for people when that's all they've ever done and all they've ever known, and then suddenly their mind closes, and now they don't know what to do. That leads to a lot of depression and anxiety and things like that. Just the job itself can be hard on mental health, but also on the other side, they find so much fulfillment in it, so when they can't, then it's a hard thing. Then I asked, do you believe community members who work in the mining industry experience more mental health issues than maybe individuals who work in other professions in the community? And I had some varied responses to this, but many said yes, they believe that they do. And I'll share some of those snippets from interviewees who said yes. So this individual said, yeah, when you picture a coal miner, I usually picture like this big, rough and tough guy, right? That's not always the case, but I think that you're in an environment where we don't talk about mental health, and we don't talk about feelings, we don't talk about vulnerability, and we don't talk about struggles. So you see a lot of untreated mental health or undiagnosed mental health because they probably don't feel comfortable reaching out to anyone about it because they'll get better tomorrow. Or they don't have time because they're working crazy shifts and crazy hours. Or they're on a long haul where they're not getting a day off for who knows how long. So there's definitely a connection. Another individual said it's higher stress, it's higher demand. Your hours are always long, your shifts are always changing. There's a lot of that weighs heavy. But I also kind of think that, I guess there's more hidden mental health, more people not willing to talk about it. The last thing, as I was saying earlier, the last thing in the world you want to do in a coal mine is bring up, I was just kind of feeling sad today. Another individual said, I think being underground, being on crazy work schedules, being on a long haul for 45 days without a day off, working through the night, I definitely can see that triggering more anxiety and depression, and having a hard time, stabilizing your moods. Another individual said it does take more of a toll on you. You could be going along and all of a sudden a wall blows out, and the next thing you know, your buddies throw it up against the wall and dead. It's very mentally stressful. And another individual said the majority of the people that end their lives are in our mining industry. It's just that's the community. So turning now to mental health stigma. Almost every interviewee that I talked to brought up mental health stigma in some capacity. And I'm just going to share a few examples that sort of encapsulate what the theme that was across all interviews. So one individual said, I think stigma plays a huge role. People are so worried that people will know that they're depressed, or that they're going to therapy, or that they're going to couples therapy, or that they have a substance use disorder. They don't seek treatment because of it, because it's such a small community. I think that stigma really keeps people sick. Another individual said, I think that people feel, specifically in this community, they feel unseen and unheard. For so long, issues like mental health or substance use have always been put on the back burner. It's uncomfortable or it's shameful, and so we brush it under the rug. That's created a lot of stigma for people to not feel comfortable to come forward and ask for help. And then another individual said, you're considered weak if you have mental health issues. You're not special in any way. You're just like everybody else. We all have problems. Figure it out. In the same sort of vein, I asked, how would you describe how people with mental illness feel about telling others? And the general consensus is that people don't tell others. One individual said, we don't air our dirty laundry, right? We keep it in the family. There's a weakness to needing that help or seeking that help, so we don't talk about it. Another said, most people that I know in their heart of hearts believe that their mental health problems are just a sign of how they're a weak individual. So that keeps us from talking about it and keeps us from seeking help. Some individuals also talked about how there is some secrecy among certain groups. And so, for example, This individual said, "This might sound stupid, but again, small town, we recognize people's vehicles, right? We know that Johnny, driving that jacked up diesel truck, he's a minor down at Skyline, and now he's parked in front of Four Corners. What is he doing? Or, oh, he has to go see a counselor, you know what I mean? So there's this kind of a secrecy to it for some demographics. And now we'll just look at some resources and solutions for addressing mental health. First, I asked individuals, what mental health services or programs are you aware of in this community? Most individuals said Four Corners, followed by various private practices, USARA, the health department and the Hope Squad, and others mentioned Carbon Medical, Life Balance Recovery, Step 1 in the hospital, and Positive Pathways. And here I have another, this is the last one, but I have another interactive thing for y'all. So you can scan that QR code or go through the web or send a text message. But the question is, what do you believe are some barriers that may prevent community members from accessing mental health services? So in just a few words, what do you believe are some barriers that might prevent community members from accessing mental health services? So I see insurance and copay and money. Yeah, lack of consistency in schedules. Stigma, a couple of times, time and money. Others will find out. Lack of providers. Cost, transportation. Stigma. Discrimination, pride. Yeah, so a lot of these that y'all mentioned here today came up in my interviews as well. So I will share now, unstable work schedules, yeah. So I will share now the findings from my interviews that I did with folks here. There we go. Okay, so again, asking, what do you believe are some barriers that may prevent community members from accessing mental health services? Stigma and cost and lack of insurance were two of the most mentioned, followed by wait times to see existing providers and a lack of providers, not knowing about available resources, transportation or lack of public transportation, distance or travel times to reach providers, time constraints because of varying schedules, and not having a psychiatrist in the area. It still won't let me go. And then I asked, do you believe the mental health care providers and services that exist in the community are sufficient to meet the community's needs? And about 51.9% or 14 said no, they don't believe that the mental health care providers and services are sufficient. We did have a few that said yes. 3 individuals said they do feel like they are sufficient. And then I have this other category. About 37% had something other to say. So for example, some say yes, they're sufficient in numbers, but no, they're not sufficient in wait times to get in to see the providers. So that's what like that other category sort of encapsulates. Then I said, what kinds of resources do you believe are needed to help address mental health issues in the community? I'm going to see if I can make this bigger on my end. I can't. I don't want to let me. So individuals said more mental health care providers, an inpatient center for those experiencing mental health related issues, Others mentioned a sober living facility, youth-specific mental health services, and psychiatric services. Next, I asked, what do you see as needed solutions for addressing mental health issues in the community? And the most mentioned solutions by far were more conversations about mental health and more community outreach. For example, one individual said, I would like to see the city talk about it. Let's really get support out into the community. Let's go boots on the ground and see where we can help. Another individual said, everybody's really good at saying that they're supportive of these things, but then you don't see that many people actually doing anything about it. Get uncomfortable, learn something new, and see how you can interact with someone that's maybe having a mental health crisis. Provide support to them and just help people feel a little bit less alone. And then I just have a few concluding remarks and sentiments. So through my interviews, I heard that coming together to address mental health concerns will be important moving forward. One individual said, if we could all come together like we did with substance use, I think it would be beautiful. I think we could get some work done. Another said, we like to work out of silos. We need to knock down the walls of those silos so that we're aware of what everybody else is doing and what their needs are. I'm still convinced that once we expose the need, that people will jump in to help. Some interviewees said some are already coming together and that continued collaboration is really key. For example, one individual said, collaboration is never easy, but it's always worth it. I've been really impressed with our community coming together in the ways that they are. Many also highlighted strengths of the community, including how the community is really supportive in times of need. For example, one individual said, when there's a traumatic event or tragedy, I can't say it enough, everybody comes together. So they come together and support individuals. There are those individuals who stigmatize people, but there's also those individuals that support people and empower people and just want to see them do well. Another said, even though we have a lot of diversity, we still have a lot of unity. If there's some kind of a need, all I have to do is make some phone calls and I have instant help. Doesn't matter if it's raising money, if it's finding resources, you just have to ask and people are there to help. And then folks are really optimistic about and hopeful about the future. One individual said, I think Carbon County is in a really good growth phase of this process of addressing mental health concerns, and I think what's happening just needs to keep happening. So that is what I have for y'all today. Again, thank you so much for having me here to speak about this. I appreciate it so much. It was great to share some of these findings with you all. Up next, we have an Narcan training, and there are wonderful resource booths around the room, so I encourage you to go check them out and really see what you can do to get involved. And then if you have any questions about QPR training, Amanda is the person to ask. And don't forget to stick around for the raffle drawing at the end. Thank you. You want to do a Q&A while we let her get mic'd up? Yeah, we can do that. Do you want me to give it to her?
Okay, sure. Thank you. So she's just going to be pulling up our next slide. If you haven't had a chance, we will have time for you to visit our resource booths and get some swag. There's also the survey that she mentioned here with the charts and graphs, the Utah Wellbeing Survey. That's at this table up here with Courtney Flynn, Dr. Flynn. And there's a physical copy that you can do, or there's links for the surveys if you live in Price or Helper, right? And East Carpenter this time? Oh, that one's closed. So Price and Helper is still open. And so does anybody have any questions about Dr. Kosey's research? Did anybody else find this really enlightening and maybe comforting to hear some of the same sentiments that we've heard and breaking down that stigma? Excellent. Well, we have a little thank you gift for you. Dr. Kosey is going to be in 2 days.
Oh my goodness, thank you so much. Should I open it now or should I open it over there? Okay. Thank you all.
And then next, welcoming to the stage, our local opioid prevention specialist from Southeast Northeast Utah Health Department. Michelle, I'm going to let you take it away. And after this presentation, there's Narcan for everyone if you want it.
Hi, I'm Michelle. I'm the opioid prevention specialist from the health department. I'm going to walk you through a little naloxone and opioid overdose training. Oh, sorry. And I'm going to skip a few pages because we got to cut down on time, so bear with me. Well, I don't want it too close to me because I already talk loud. So how do I change this page? It looks different than my computer. Okay. So this is just a little bit of a did you know. The overall national opioid dispensing rate declined from 2012 to 2020. In 2020, the dispensing rate had fallen to the lowest in 15 years, for which we have data at 43.3 prescriptions per 100 persons. A total of more than 142 million opioid prescriptions. In 2017, Utah averaged 1 opioid-related death every day. In that same year, 7 people died every week as a result of poisoning in Utah, 5 of which are the direct result of overdosing on prescription opioids. And your source. For ages 45 to 54, more females die of a prescription pain medication overdose than males. For under the age of 34, males are significantly more likely to die of a prescription pain medication overdose than females. And we're going to skip that because we kind of went over it already. Drug poisoning deaths are a preventable public health problem that has outpaced deaths due to firearms, falls, and motor vehicle crashes. Although Utah is seeing a decrease in the number of prescription opioid deaths since 2010, the number of heroin deaths have increased in that same period. It only takes 7 days to become dependent on opiates, and it only takes 3 days for someone's tolerance to drop. What puts a person at higher risk for overdosing? Mixing drugs or mixing with other depressants such as maybe mixing opioids, meth, alcohol, opioids, fentanyl, kind of different mixtures. Injecting, change in tolerance, abstinence, using alone, physical health, mental health, strength / content. One thing in the change in tolerance is we have people who may be on probation or parole and they'll get a parole violation or a probation violation and they get thrown in jail and they get a 72-hour hold. And that in those 3 days drops their tolerance level, and without them realizing it, they get out, they go straight back to using what they were using when they went before, and they overdose. We have a lot of overdoses because of that. So people don't realize how quickly that tolerance can drop. What are opioids? Opioids are depressants. They slow down the central nervous system, including your breathing. They're a type of drug from the opium poppy or synthetically made by a drug company. Some of the ones that we probably recognize the most are heroin, codeine, morphine, fentanyl, Dilaudid, Lortab, Norco, oxycodone, and Vicodin, Tylenol 3. Some people don't realize that one. Percocet and Tramadol. People don't realize that very much either. And this is just a little bit about fentanyl, how strong it is. There are 42 known analogs or counterparts of it. And the different names are carfentanil, alfentanil, and sulfentanil. Who knows how to say these names, right? They're very strong. And we have had carfentanil in Carbon and Emery County area. And when it hit, we had quite a bit of overdoses. The thing with fentanyl is now, it used to be scary. They put it in the drug, they mix it in, people were scared that, oh, we don't want to get that, you'll overdose. Now, they're not scared of it anymore, it's the new heroin. They're actually seeking fentanyl now, it's the drug of choice. This kind of shows you a little bit how it's hard to tell the difference between the real one and a counterfeit one. They look almost identical. The one right here that says prescription, that's the real one versus the counterfeit. Our kids don't know that. At school, if someone's going to give them a medicine, a pill, and tell them, hey, you know, this is for my child, they don't know if it's real or not. That's the scary part about that. Your body, it's very important to know that your body does not know the difference. Prescription opioids are just like heroin. Here's this page, I love this page. I got it from Ashley. It shows you a little bit of difference in the signs of a crystal overdose or meth overdose, kind of what that looks like, versus a cocaine overdose versus just alcohol poisoning. What does an opioid overdose look like? When they're high, they're nodding out, they've got kind of itchy skins, slurred speech, they respond to stimulation. Sometimes you can keep them talking, keep them with you. If they have overdose, they're unconscious, unresponsive to stimulation, change in skin color, shallow, erratic breathing, not breathing, sounds of choking, snoring, or gurgling, and pinpoint pupils. If you ever come across it, you will know if somebody has overdosed. What is naloxone? Naloxone is an antidote that reverses the overdose from heroin or prescription opioids and gets someone breathing again. Naloxone can be obtained by anyone. There is no potential abuse or side effect, and side effects are rare. It works quickly, 1 to 3 minutes, lasts 30 to 90 minutes. I'm going to pause right there. It's important, if you ever have to use it, don't prime it. It's a little pump. You use it once, it goes. And it lasts 30 to 90 minutes, so if you leave that person, they could re-overdose. So it's important to call 911, stay with the person. More than one dose of Narcan may be required when stronger opioids like fentanyl are involved. I've actually had, on the harm reduction program, reported up to 12 doses to bring somebody out of an overdose. That's, for me personally, one of the highest doses that I've been reported. I don't know if there's higher, but for me that's the highest I've heard of. And it only works on opioids. It does not work on meth or alcohol or cocaine. If those drugs are laced with the fentanyl or something, it may work on that part, but it may still not bring them out of the overdose. And this kind of shows you how it works, how the opioids, they attach to the receptors of the brain, and you give them the dose of naloxone and it releases those receptors and it brings that person out of that overdose. And when they come out of it, they're 100% sober and in withdrawal, and they're usually pretty mad. So be careful, because they're going to come up angry. Who should have naloxone? Everybody. Some people tell me, oh, I don't need that. Nobody I know does that. I tell them, you never know. You know, in the day and age that we live in now, these kids do crazy things. You know, they do dabs, which I didn't even know what that was until I started working here. And dabs are laced with fentanyl. We've had a 15-year-old boy in Carbon County overdosed on it and was in ICU for a few days. He did turn out okay, but he had no idea it was there. His friends had no idea it was there. It was in his dab. They didn't know. And there is the Good Samaritan law. I won't go over it. We'll just read over that a little bit. It does help if you've helped somebody, but it does got a caveat. If somebody is on probation or parole and they are there to help their friend, it's up to the cop, but they could still be arrested if that's a probation violation, because they're really not supposed to be doing that. But I think in Carbon and Emery County, our law enforcement's getting a little better with that, understanding that. I'm glad that they didn't leave the person. So how can you help? Steer clear of opioids. Avoid taking more than you're prescribed. Never share your painkillers. Get rid of unused meds. Talk to your doctor about alternatives to prescription opioids, and carry naloxone. What can providers do? Use non-opioid treatment. Review the PD, MP. Offer treatment for opioid disorder, start low, go slow, and avoid concurrent prescriptions. Here's some of the resources where we got that. And there is a video, I did skip it. Do you guys want to play the video? Do you have time for that? Yeah? Okay, let's see. There's a little quick video right here that kind of walks you through on how to administer it, if it will play. It's not coming. Maybe it's not even gonna go.
I look for the person who knows technology, that's not me.
And I wonder if it's not working because I emailed this over, so it doesn't have the real link.
There you go.
Cool. Good girl. Says it's going.
Information concerning its use. Please see indications and important safety information at the end of this video. Also, please see accompanying full prescribing information in the use of this product. Narcan nasal spray is an emergency treatment for a known or suspected opioid overdose. The appropriate use of Narcan nasal spray can help you save a life. Narcan nasal spray is not a substitute for emergency medical care. As with any drug, you need to be aware of important safety information concerning its use. If you encounter someone who is unresponsive and you suspect an overdose, first shake their shoulders and shout their name. Kevin. Ask if he or she is okay. Hey, can you hear me? Check for signs of an overdose. Unresponsive to touch or voice. Breathing is slow, uneven, or has stopped. Snoring, gasping, or gurgling sounds. Fingernails or lips are blue or purple. Administer Narcan nasal spray as quickly as possible if someone is unresponsive and an opioid overdose is suspected, even when in doubt, because prolonged respiratory depression may result in damage to the central nervous system or even death. Lay the person on their back to receive a dose of Narcan nasal spray. Remove Narcan nasal spray from the box. Peel back the tab with a circle to open it. Remove and review the printed quick start guide inside the package. Hold the Narcan nasal spray with your thumb on the bottom of the plunger and your first and middle fingers on either side of the nozzle. Do not press the plunger to test or prime the device. If you do, you will waste all or part of the dose of medication. Tilt the person's head back and provide support under the neck with your hand. Gently insert the tip of the nozzle into one nostril until your fingers on either side of the nozzle are against the person's nose. Press the plunger firmly to give the full dose of Narcan nasal spray. Remove the device from the nostril after giving the dose. After you have given this medication, seek emergency help right away. Narcan nasal spray is not a substitute for emergency medical care.
I'm with somebody who stopped breathing. I think they had an overdose.
Move the person on their side after giving Narcan nasal spray. If possible, put their hands under their head and bend their upper leg forward. This helps prevent the person from rolling onto their stomach. This is known as the recovery position. Continue to watch the person closely. If they do not wake up or respond to your voice or touch, or if they do not seem to be breathing normally within 2 to 3 minutes, use the new Narcan nasal spray to give an additional dose in the other nostril. Acute opiate withdrawal symptoms may occur from use of Narcan nasal spray in patients who are opioid dependent. Symptoms include body aches, diarrhea, increased heart rate or tachycardia, fever, runny nose, sneezing, goosebumps, also known as piloerection, sweating, yawning, nausea or vomiting, nervousness, restlessness or irritability, shivering or trembling, abdominal cramps, weakness and increased blood pressure. When the emergency is over, put the Narcan nasal spray back in its box and throw it away in a place that is away from the reach of children. In addition to watching this video, please read the quick start guide that comes with Narcan nasal spray before using it. Talk to a healthcare professional if you have any questions about how to administer Narcan nasal spray. Please read the indications and important safety information that follows. Store Narcan nasal spray.
Oh, sorry, stopped it too quick. Anyway, room temperature. Do not freeze it. Oh, sorry. Don't freeze it. Don't let it get in extreme temperatures. If you have it in the super hot, it's gonna burn. If you have it in the freezing, if it does get too hot or too cold, it's still okay if you bring it into room temperature and use it, because it froze, it doesn't mean it's no good. Or if it got too hot, doesn't mean it's no good. Just try to keep it at room temperature. And then it just kind of goes through other stuff. But I also like to tell people that Narcan is safe to use on pregnant women, children, infants, animals. If someone's having a heart attack and you thought they overdosed and you Narcan them instead, it's generally safe. It's not going to cause any problems. They say there's no side effects, but you don't have to worry about it being, causing anything worse. Just tell the EMTs, hey, I thought it was an overdose and I Narcaned them, and then they're going to know the Narcan didn't work, so it's not that. So it kind of helps in that way. But other than that, I think that's it. Next up is Amanda McIntosh. Oh wait, do we have questions? Sorry. So there's an expiration date on it, and the makers of Narcan say that it is good for a year beyond that expiration date. And the new Narcan that they're putting out and giving to us does reflect a newer date. But if you have some and it's expired, just throw it away, I'll give you more. But even Narcan, the makers of Narcan will say, you know what, it's better to have it and not need it. But sometimes, like in our case, like at the health department, we can't have it just because that expiration date. They check it, they inspect you, you gotta get rid of it. But any other questions?
Assuming that based off of the temperature, keeping it in your glove box is a moot point.
I tell people that they can keep it in their glove box, but during extreme, like the really hot summer or the really cold, try to take it in. I mean, it's better to have it and not need it, but you really don't want to burn someone, or it probably wouldn't spray if it was frozen. Are we good? Because I'm nervous. Yeah, it just reverses an opioid overdose. Yeah.
If you want to come look at one of the boxes, it has it, and it's got Narcan in it, it's not going to hurt you, there's no side effects. So if you're, when in doubt, give Narcan, right? You could save someone's life. So if you do not have a Narcan kit, please get one. I know we have some at the harm reduction booth right here, and we also have some at the heart booth right here. And if you work in a mine, I'd love to give all of you supervisors, or take them to your supervisor. This is just an overdose kit. So in it has some resources for people, and also a Narcan kit, some gloves, and then a facial mask for like CPR if they wanted to do that as well. So come visit me at this booth if you want one of these kits if you work in mine. Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you. I don't have all the answers.
You want to hand me the microphone? That way you guys can work on that and I can be up here.
So while she's getting this up, I invite you to get your surveys out.
You're stepping on my
We
pad
are
of paper.
ready for you to do your post survey. So we're ready for you to do your
Thank you.
post survey. Now that we have completed both of the trainings, there's also a QR code if you don't want to waste paper. And I also wanted to be sure to tell you, we have plenty of local resource booklets for Carbon and Emory as well over at this table if you wanted them. Again, if you haven't had a chance to walk around and visit all of our amazing, incredible partners and booths tonight, please do. There's so many resources for our local area that it kind of blew my mind when we all came together and made this book, because we have a lot to offer in our rural communities. So be sure to visit everybody. And I'm going to pass it to Amanda McIntosh, our local suicide prevention specialist.
Thank you. Like Ashley said, I'm the local suicide prevention specialist with the Southeast Utah Health Department. I also chair the Hope Squad of Carbon, Emory, and Grand Counties, which is our local suicide prevention coalition. And I currently am serving as the secretary for the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention Utah chapter. And so I just wanted to come in front of you tonight. Thank you all for coming and taking interest in this very vital conversation that we need to continue long after tonight. And a special thank you to Dr. Kosey and Dr. Shad and Dr. Flint for coming and sharing their knowledge with us and their programs. It's invaluable that we have them throughout the state that we can lean on when we have presentations like this. So thank you. Round of applause for them, please. Before we close out, please make sure that you're filling out those post surveys. That's information that we can use to better ourselves and better the programs that we bring to the community, and bringing statistics and data that only helps the community as a whole, right? And that's what we really want to aim for, is making sure that our community is healthy. We're creating healthier lives every day. And we can't do that without our many partners that are here this evening. Starting over here to my left is Four Corners Community Behavioral Health and the CARE Coalition. Let's thank them for the work that they are doing for our youth and for our coal miners in their own right. And we have Castleview Hospital and Step 1 Services. And then we have Carbon Medical Services, Life Balance Recovery. We have UVU is represented today, and UROC, don't ask me what that stands for. Utah Rural Opioid Health Care Coalition Consortium. It's a lot of big words, it's fine. Then we have USARA, them in the back, thank you so much. We have our local representatives for Black Lung and for CERTA, or AOG, if you guys are not familiar with their new name change, thank you for coming. Then we have the Southeast Utah Harm Reduction Coalition, the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, and Hope Squad of Carbon, Emory, Grand Counties. We have the Health Extension, USU Extension and Health program. And then we have CANRE, or the Community and Natural Resource Institute, represented this evening. A special thank you to Sydney with Event Services at the university for putting on that meal. Let's give her a huge round of applause. That was delicious. And then we have Brittany Garr from the Southeast Utah Health Department, who was kind enough to share her evening with us and record this so that we can send it out even further into the community by getting it into the hands of our coal mines and mine bosses so that they can look at it and share in the information that Dr. Kosey so generously shared with us this evening. Again, fill out those post-training surveys for us, and you can drop them off. You can leave them on the table, or you can drop them at the front table on your way out. In no way are we rushing you, because we still have raffles to give away. But if you want to make sure that you hit the tables this evening before you leave as well. Because of our generous partners, we have 11 gifts to give away this evening. What's that?
I have one more announcement. So also, thank you for USU Eastern Services. They actually put some to-go containers, so if anybody would like to load up another baked potato, or one or two, right? Like, start with one and go for two if there's more left. left, right? Share the potatoes. But they're back there, so before you leave tonight, if you want to grab an extra, take it home for later. We would love to reduce food waste, so please help us do so.
Yay, yay. All right, let's pull some names for